Welcome to Forward Launch Your SaaS. I'm Kira Woodard, the podcast marketer and owner of Forward Launch. In this series, I sit down with executives whose marketing campaigns have resulted in impressive growth for their startups. I'm sitting down today with David Kofoed Wind. He is the co-founder and CEO of Eduflow, a modern learning management system for active and social learning. Before that, he obtained a Ph.D. with a focus in machine learning and data science and educational technology. And he has worked as a software developer, data consultant, and he also founded Peergrade, a service for providing peer evaluations and peer feedback, which led him to his current company, Eduflow. So David, I am super excited to chat with you and dig into your background.
Yeah, excited to be here. It's awesome.
Yeah, so tell me, how did you go on this journey from being a PhD student to now founding two companies and your most recent company, Eduflow?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long and complicated story, but kind of the abbreviated version is that I was doing my PhD in computer science. I got to teach a course in data science, which I liked. And that course got way too large. Like, people apparently really cared about data science. So the original 30 students became 150. So I had to kind of give feedback to 150 students, and that wasn't possible, basically. So I decided to build some software where the students could give feedback to each other. And I thought, okay, if they grade each other's papers, I don't have to do it. And then they'll also learn something from like reading each other's work and giving each other feedback. So I started building this product. I called it Peergrade. And then it kind of worked. And my supervisor thought it was a great idea and asked me to sell a license to the university. So I ended up selling a license to my department head, and he bought it. And then suddenly I had a company on my hands that I didn't really anticipate having. So found my old high school friend and got him to be my CTO. And then we built a product together. We made a company, we raised some capital, and then I finished my PhD quickly. And then I went on to kind of building a software company. So that was Peergrade. We sold that to universities and schools. And then we did 4 years of that, where we raised some money, did Y Combinator and so on. And then throughout the time with Peergrade, we learned a lot of things. We learned where Peergrade was great and what was kind of limiting. So we eventually decided to start from scratch and say, okay, with everything we know now, if we started over, what would we do differently? And then we built Eduflow, which is a more general product. It's a product to run full online courses that are more active and social. And that's kind of what we do now. We still have Peergrade in the background running itself. We haven't really touched it, but Eduflow is the new company that we do today.
Yeah, that is interesting. So did you ever have like an intention to go into startups, or was it just like, oh, I guess this is working, let me just kind of fall backwards into the startup world?
Yeah, I think it's always like, I've always been a programmer since I was a kid. And I think if you like programming and you like building things in this world today, it's kind of inevitable that you will end up building a company almost, because you build products and people use products and then they pay for them. So it was going to happen some way or another. That it was Peergrade was not clear. That was purely by accident. And I totally did not build it as a company. I was working on some other kind of startup idea at that time. And then when that died, I was like, okay, I guess I have this Peergrade thing that I kind of sold the license to. So maybe I just go full time on that. So I have half accident, but probably inevitable that it would be some kind of company.
Yeah, I love the accidental on purpose finding of product market fit. The founding stories are always so messy like that, but sometimes it's just like brilliant coincidence that you land on something that's useful and interesting.
It's good to be your own customer as well, right? I think that helps you understand kind of the problem. There's always at least one customer, then yourself, and then you can just ask yourself, what would the customers like? Well, I guess this would be nice. And then you build it.
Okay. So what is your one big insight from growing either one of your companies that you would share with other B2B SaaS marketing executives?
Yeah, I think there's so many things I've learned over the years, right? But coming at it from like a B2B perspective in SaaS, I think with Eduflow, one of the big challenges we've had is that Eduflow is a product that has different licenses, like self-service, individual person licenses. And then we have like big scale enterprise deals with large companies like Google, for example, right? And most of our money comes from the large licenses. And the problem is that most of the tricks of the trade in marketing are like, how do you run ads to get people to sign up to your product? And like, it all works very well for these products that you can go quickly from like seeing it the first time to buying it. So like e-commerce, very easy to like run an ad, get people to buy your perfume or something. But if your product is like $100,000, for example, people don't just sit in their couch on Facebook scrolling, see an ad for like B2B SaaS enterprise product and say, I'm going to buy this. Let me just like click 2 buttons and wire the money. So our sales cycle is very long for these kind of sales. And often the challenge is that you sell to people right when they need the product, not when they hear about it necessarily. So one thing we've tried to deal a lot with is like, how do we get people to hear about us and then remember us when they have to use us or buy us later? And what we've done here in the last year is to basically create an artificially longer funnel in our sales cycle. So instead of running an ad to say buy our B2B SaaS product, we could run an ad and say, hey, here's a course about great online teaching. So if you want to teach, go and take this free course. And people will say, okay, if they're sitting on Facebook, they might go and sign up for a free course. That's more likely. And then when they take this free course, they'll hear about Eduflow. And then they'll get on an email list because now we have their email. And then we can slowly tell them about our product and our services. And then one day when they need the product, they might go and buy a license. So basically, instead of going from Facebook or whatever to buying Eduflow, they go from Facebook to buying a course or getting a free course and then to buying Eduflow. So we kind of inject this kind of middle step. And we do courses. It makes a lot of sense for us, but it could be an ebook or it could be an email newsletter or whatever, right? Something that is much easier to subscribe to. So like a small step towards your product. And then you can slowly massage them and warm them up to become customers later.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's an important step, especially recognizing the difference between like B2B and B2C, and especially the differences between these really big complicated deals and like impulse purchases. So you can buy like you can buy a new sweater off of a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, but you're not going to buy a new $100,000 software product. So that makes a whole lot of sense. And I like how you specifically honed in on using courses, because that kind of goes along with your brand, right? You're an educational company. So the thing you do to attract educators and pull them into your ecosystem is by creating these online courses.
Yeah, so I think we've hit on some kind of, I feel like it's a very smart idea. Let's see if it actually plays out long term to be as smart as I think it is. But basically, right, we built a platform to run courses. And so the people we want to have as buyers are people who create courses. Right. So we make courses about making courses, and then we run them on our own platform. So a course could be like which instructional design principles do you want to use for course creation? And then we'll find instructional designers, which is a role type we care about. We'll say, here's a free course about instructional design. Come and take it in Eduflow. And then they'll sign up, they'll take this free course in Eduflow. And through that course, it will not be about Eduflow, but they'll see Eduflow in action. They'll see how nice it is. And we'll inject a few like small things, like a small ad for Eduflow or a small discussion about like, how would you use Eduflow and so on. And then when they go through that course, afterwards, they know about Eduflow. They've connected with us personally. We'll do like Zoom webinars. We'll participate in discussions ourselves. They've seen the product live and in action and tried it themselves. And now they come out on the other side and we can't do more now. They know about the product. They know why it's smart. They've tried it. If they ever need a product like ours, they'll hopefully surely remember our product, right? So that's the way we do it. So we have kind of like we double dip in some sense, because we both tell them about the product, but they also like use the product when we tell them about the product. I think you could do that for other businesses, but for us, that was kind of the smartest way to go about it, I think.
How many online courses do you have like that you use to pull in, I guess, leads, I guess?
I think we have 8 now, but we have kind of different types of courses here, which is actually also interesting. So we have a large course, which is a cohort-based course that we spend a lot of time on. So we built that internally. It's very large. It's like 3 weeks, very intensive. It took a lot of time to build, and it attracts a lot of people. and you have to apply to join it. So not everybody can actually get in. So it feels kind of cool. And then we have other people like influencers in our space who build paid courses and run them on our course platform. So we give them free access to Eduflow and we help them market their courses. But then the trick for us is that they will then go and attract their own audience and they will then come to our platform and take the course. And then we'll share the revenue, for example, with the people who run their courses on our platform. And then the third type of courses is actually small lead generation courses. So we have some blog posts that do really well, just SEO winners on our blog. And the problem is like they read a blog post about, it could be about this, how do you make good discussion questions for your course? And then we get like 1,000 people a month to read that article, or more. But like, how do we actually use that for anything, right? So the classic is make some downloadable content piece, like a template or an ebook or something. But we decided to make a course. So when you read about discussion questions, you can then take a course about how to make great discussion questions. And then when people get to the blog post, some of them will go and join our free course. And for us, it's just a way to get their email essentially, but also a way, again, to get them to try the product, sign up, have a user, kind of build a bit more trust with us. And I think personally, I don't really understand the whole ebook idea. Maybe I'm just not the target market for ebooks, but I would never read like a 5-page white paper or something. That's kind of weird. And I would definitely not give my email to obtain a PDF. Like you can just download PDFs. Why would I need to give my email, right? But enrolling in a course is a very legitimate reason to ask for an email. So for me, I feel like it's a way to legitimize that ask for an email and also give something of higher value. I think people perceive a free course as more valuable than a PDF.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And I think it's very interesting how you kind of identified which of your blog posts were performing the best and then created your course content around that.
Yeah, we had some blog posts that were created with a clear call to action in mind, right? We had like a salary survey blog post. What will you make as an instructional designer? Does pretty well. And then there was a report you can download at the end. So that was always built with that downloadable content in mind. But then we also had some top of funnel blog posts that were just like really good at attracting people from Google. That's not really clear what we could actually offer people then. So we took the 2 top ones and then I built courses around them. I think it took me less than a few hours maybe to build the course, because we have like an easy way to build courses with the course tool ourselves. But also I had a very extensive blog post that I could just like cut into pieces and then make those activities in the course and then add a few extra things, right? So I took a blog post, cut it into 5 activities, content activities in our tool. And then I added like a discussion activity where they could discuss the blog post. And I gave them a certificate if they finished the course. And suddenly I had a full course, which is actually just a blog post repackaged in a different way.
Yeah, I've heard of lots of ways to repurpose content, but that's a new one. I have not heard of people repurposing their blog posts into courses, but that's really good. And you actually mentioned earlier that for some of your courses, you have experts come in and like you do some kind of revenue share. So are you doing paid courses in addition to free courses?
Yeah, we do both. Like I love the free course. Like free courses are from like getting people to see the platform. They're like dramatically more interesting, right? Because they'll attract 10 to 100 times more people. The good thing about the paid courses is that they'll pay back the cost of producing them, right? So something we've done a few times is that we'll find somebody who knows something in the space that we're in and has the same audience that we want to go after. And then we'll tell them, okay, we're going to give you some amount of money, like here's a fee, and then you build a course on our platform that we will sell on the platform. If nobody takes the course, you just get the money and you got money for building the course. And then if somebody actually enrolls in this paid course, we'll split the revenue from the course. So you'll get more money if people actually take your course. And that gives them an incentive to go and market the course themselves because they're getting money the more people that take it. And we also then slowly make back the money that we invested upfront to build the course. So if a certain number of people will take the course, then it becomes a cost neutral operation for us. Plus, we get all the leads that take the course into our platform. Bit complicated, and it's I'm not sure it's always the right model. I think sometimes it's easier to just say like, here's some money, build the course, we'll run it for free, and then maybe give people a bit more upfront. But in theory, it's a very interesting idea, right? And I guess the goal and the hope is that the more we do this, the bigger the audience becomes, right? So we started with nobody. Now we have, I don't know, 10, 15,000 people in this set of courses. So when we launch a new course now, we can tell everybody about the new course.
Right.
So if you go and build a course right now for like how to market your course or something like that, right? You build it, and then we tell every 15,000 people about this new course, and that will generate the first amount of revenue instantly. So launching courses on our platform becomes more and more interesting. So the hope is that all of this kind of network effects will play out long term to make it stronger and stronger and easier to grow. And so far, it's going really well.
Right. I like how you've had all of these people, whether they're signing up for free or paid courses, you kind of use that to get them into your ecosystem. Now they're on your email list, and you can use that to either promote your products in the future. Like you can use it to advertise your own company. You can use it to advertise like your paid courses and make some of your money back. You can use it like if people aren't even in a buying cycle right now where they're ready to buy, especially in these big enterprise deals. You can use these courses to kind of keep your brand top of mind for them, so that when they are ready to buy, you're the first person they think of.
Exactly. So we call it Eduflow Academy. It's kind of the catchphrase for like, or the catch-all for all of these things, right? A newsletter. We have a community on Circle, like this community platform that people can get into and talk to each other about instructional design questions and so on. And then we have the courses. And it's all kind of part of the same big scheme to say, okay, we want to build an audience of the right buyer persona. And you can get into this audience by downloading some content, taking one of our courses, whatever. Like there's many ways in. And then we can use that audience to promote our product, as you say, but also the Eduflow Academy audience can kind of start growing itself by being kind of word of mouth and so on. You can kind of build that into the audience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So since you've implemented this strategy of, lengthening the sales cycle, or I guess lengthening the marketing cycle in general. Yeah, we don't want to lengthen a sales cycle anymore than
it's long enough already. Yeah.
But since we've lengthened our marketing funnel to include this sort of intermediate step of providing this content and collecting these email addresses. So since you've done that, what has been the result? What was kind of the before and after?
Yeah, so I think there's many people who claim, and maybe there are people who can do this, I can track everything and attribute everything in a marketing setup. I cannot. Every time we try to like put attribution amounts on anything, it just doesn't really add up. So tracking the actual results of anything we do is very hard, but we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, basically, and that's the Eduflow Academy idea. And we can definitely see growth on the other side accelerating. So there is somehow these things connect. Anecdotally, we can see it in a lot of the sales calls we do, right? So we track how many sales calls we get and sales demos, right? And that's like 6 doubled over the last 6 months or something, right? So it's like gone up a lot. And when we talk to people in these calls, it's all kind of, it connects, right? So I was on a call yesterday with 2 people who were considering buying a premium plan for Eduflow. And turns out that one of the people in the call were like, oh, I'm actually in your cohort-based course right now. It's like, oh, great. So that's maybe why they know about us. We don't like necessarily have a way to track that, because then he takes the course, but he tells his friend about it, and then the friend signs up. Yeah. So it's not possible really to measure, but we can just hear it that it's a lot of word of mouth. Basically all of our traffic is organic, right? It's purely organic growth. And this is a part of building that brand that people then talk about.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's useful that you have a platform so that every time somebody uses your platform, it's just the platform itself is kind of a way of marketing. Because we had another guest on the podcast a while ago who they kind of had the same problem. Like they didn't know how to like attribute where a spike in growth was coming from. Like just one day there was just like a huge spike in growth or a huge spike in traffic. And I was like, where did this come from? So he Googled it, and apparently like some university had used their platform to like show a whole bunch of videos, and then people would click through on the logo because they said, oh, what is this? What who is hosting this? And that's what led to their spike in traffic and people knowing about them. So tapping into that word of mouth can be really, really powerful. And just having your brand out there and having links where people can kind of click back and see this is what you're all about. This is what Eduflow is.
Yeah, and I think there are products that are like perfect at this, right? Like Zoom, Calendly, these products that are like viral in nature, like to use the product, you introduce another person to the product.
Right.
That's like that's the golden way to do it, right? And there are products that don't have that at all. And then there are products who kind of have it in a weird way. And we have it in a weird way, I think. So a lot of our growth has been very complicated recently. We're like, why is everything going bananas in Singapore? It's like, what is going on in Singapore? Because we're far from Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And then what we figured out is that we have two large customers that use Eduflow in Singapore. One of them is INSEAD Business School, so like the top business school in the world, and they're based in Singapore. And then something called Hyper Island, which is also like executive education for like companies, also based out of Singapore. So what happens is that a lot of like business people, like managers and smart people from companies, they go and take executive MBA style courses. And they use Eduflow to take those courses. And then they go back to their companies the next week and say, you know what I saw last week? I saw this cool product that called Eduflow. So, and it's impossible for us to track, but basically somebody comes in as a student in one organization and then they pull back Eduflow as an instructor to somewhere else. And this is very scalable, right? Because a business course at INSEAD might have 500 participants. And these 500 people are like managers in 500 different companies, large companies. So the virality factor here is very large.
Right.
And we get a lot of our customers this way, but not really knowing how and when. But I talked to some guy last week, I think, and he was like, oh, I actually used Eduflow at Hyper Island and I really liked it. So, and I need a course platform now. So I'm going to use Eduflow again. That's really nice.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said here about making a product that's so good that when people use it, they're willing to recommend it to their friends.
Yeah, but even like making a product where they will end up using it somewhere else, right? I think that's kind of everything that has like a shareable component in it where you use it with externals. I think that using it with somebody outside your own org is like, that's the key, right? It could be a form tool, calendar booking tool, like for Zoom, like Slack, not right, but then Slack has this like external channels thing. Google Docs, like all of these products have like a invite collaborator feature. Those are just golden, right? Because it allows you to push products onto people who don't know about it yet.
Right. I think there's something to be said about introducing that shareability component to your marketing tactics as well, because in a sense, your product already does that. So when people use your product, they'll see that Eduflow exists. But also when people take your courses, now that you've lengthened this marketing funnel and you've created this kind of intermediate course that's like attractive to your target audience, that's shareable, right? Because you might not say to your friend who's not looking for an educational or learning product right now, if you're not looking to at an enterprise deal right now, the people are not just going to share that with their friends all the time, but you can share a course like any day of the week. So there's a higher shareability component to content, especially like really valuable content.
Yeah, we even try to like attach to this specifically, right, and say like, okay, here's a certificate, for example, when you finish the course, and that goes on LinkedIn, right? Or we have a nomination form, so when you finish the course and like actually complete it, you can nominate somebody for the next cohort, and we'll give them kind of a reserved seat, which is a way for people to like give something to their friends or colleagues. It's also a way for us to kind of not have to do a lot of marketing because people will bring in another lead for next month. And that kind of, the first cohort was 30 people. The second cohort was 50 people. The third cohort was 500 people. And now we're getting ready for cohort 4, which is coming in next month, I think, or in 3 weeks. It's going to be at least the same size as cohort 3. But we haven't even started marketing for it yet. We haven't pushed it at all, and we already have more than 500 applications for it. So
Wow.
it's getting easier and easier. And basically, I think in a month, we'll stop marketing for it because the audience has a certain size. And I'm not afraid of tapping out the audience, but we don't need to push harder now on this course. I think it'll run its own course now. It will just keep growing. So now we can go build another course and then start over basically in a slightly different audience, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just give the same audience more and more content, right? Like cement ourselves as the thought leaders in the space and the people you wanna follow on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, this is perfect because it's like it's already something that's very shareable, but you're adding in elements to make it even easier to share and like to harness these people who already are enjoying your courses and get them to tell their friends about it. So it's like you're boosting that word of mouth, which is just exponential.
Yeah, it's working really well. And then LinkedIn, I don't know what to feel about LinkedIn. I've never been really a LinkedIn person, but LinkedIn is good for this, right? I think Twitter is weird. Twitter's hard to work with, right? For B2B. But LinkedIn is where it's at, I think, and we're definitely seeing a lot of growth there, like 300-400 new followers a month on average on our company profile, which is good for a company profile, I think. And also our individual LinkedIn profiles get a ton of followers because people will sign up for the course, they'll get accepted, and then they'll like write a thank you post on LinkedIn, like, thank you so much to Eduflow and David and William for accepting me to the next cohort of the course. I'm really grateful and blah, blah, blah. And then 70 people will like that post, right? So it's very effective for sharing. And it's also they get a good experience. It's everybody wins, right? That's the good thing about this as well. Like, I actually don't feel like we're scamming anybody, right? We're actually just like, we'll spend a lot of resources on building a really good course. And it only works if the course is good enough for them to share. Yeah. And then we'll give it away for free. Nobody loses. If they don't want to buy the product, fine. They can just have the course and be happy. And if they need the product, then they'll buy it. So I think down the line, like 1 to 5% of the people who take the courses might become customers of Eduflow, but that's okay, right? It's not like a very bottom of funnel, like how to do something with Eduflow course. It is more top of funnel to kind of get people in, get them to know us and so on.
There's a saying that if you build it, they will come. I feel like you kind of tap into that a little bit because you build something that's so valuable that people want to find you and seek you out and tell other people about you. But then you build content to get people into your ecosystem that's so valuable that people want to seek you out. And then you feed that and you kind of fan those flames. And that's brilliant. So if we were to bring this whole conversation down to just a handful of steps that other SaaS marketers could follow to implement your main insight, which was, kind of lengthen that marketing funnel, what would the steps be?
Good question. I think it's about, if you have a product that has a long sales cycle, it's about finding an intermediary product or offering or something that is easy to buy or easy to go into. It doesn't have to have a payment attached to it, right? But like something that people can see on LinkedIn or whatever, and then go for immediately. Could be a course, an ebook. Like a lot of people do like side product, so they'll build another product that's simpler, offer that for free, and when you use that product, then they can start attaching you to the real product. So any kind of like smaller packaged, easy to understand thing, and then it's basically like breaking it into two, right? Go to like just get the small product, and then we'll solve the rest later. Just see if you can grow the smaller part first, and then when you have people using the product or the book or the course or whatever, now you have another task, which is like, okay, how do we get these people to then know about the big thing? Yeah. But it takes this very big problem that you can't solve and breaks it into two problems that are easier to solve. And I think that's kind of how we should think about it and approach problems in general.
Yeah, one is create some kind of attractive intermediate product or like scaled down version of, what your core offer is, or some kind of course or something that's attractive to your audience that's free or that you can onboard them very easily. And then the second task is get the people who are using that to know about your main offering so that when or if they know somebody or they themselves are ready to buy, your real product, then they already know about it and they're kind of in your ecosystem.
And it feels wrong, right? Yeah, like we have a problem, but now we have two problems. But it's those two problems, the sum of those is much smaller than the original problem, right? Like because it's like making a course, it's not that hard, and getting people to take it is not that hard. And now you have an audience that you own because you have their email addresses, and you know that's a very targeted audience. So now talking to those people is easier than writing broadly on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, because like you know who they are, they know about you. It's small, then you own the email addresses and so on. So now that's an easier problem to tackle. The other part about it is like if you're coming at it from the same position as we are, like B2B enterprise deals, the ticket size here can be rather large, right? So getting one customer out of this can pay for the whole thing. So you can basically, which makes us an unfair competitor to individual people in the creator space, right? You'll have some like individual creators trying to make a living out of selling courses for like $50. And they have to like sell a lot of courses because they have to make a salary. Like we have a company, and we have tons of money, right? We have a lot of money compared to an individual. So we can just like, we can hire 3 people, have them build incredible courses, and then give them away for free. Yeah. And it's impossible for individuals to compete with that because we just have more resources. And we'll make back the money in another way later. We'll make back the money when one of those course participants buys an Eduflow license. Then we make back the whole thing. I think you should also think about like, okay, if I'm gonna make a small product or a small course or an ebook or whatever, do I have resources that allow me to build something incredible and give it away for free? That will like outmarket or outcompete the others in the space, right? Who are like trying to, I don't know, it feels like a bad thing to do, right? You feel like an evil corp coming in here and like disrupting the small creators. But like there's people teaching individuals teaching courses about instructional design, right? And they have to make a living. We don't directly, at least, right? So we can make a really good course and give it away for free while they have to charge for theirs. So that's a secret trick. That's basically an unfair advantage as a company that you should leverage, right?
Yeah. And to anybody listening to this, don't feel bad about providing more value than is already out there. Yeah, because that raises the whole bar of what everybody who comes after has to kind of compete with, right? Because you are looking at what's out there and you're creating something that kind of tops that. So now everybody else has to kind of up their game. So everybody benefits in the long run, especially the end customers or the end users or whoever's taking the course. Benefits the other creators' knowledge as well, because now they have your baseline from your company to start with of like, oh, this is a really quality course. I can learn from them and I can make whatever I'm doing really better, a lot better. So yeah, the other thing I want to ask is when people are trying to implement these steps, what pitfalls might they come across?
Yeah, I think one of our challenges, and that's partly attached to this specific idea, but also generally, is like you have to know your audience well, right? Because if you build then a course or an ebook or whatever, a smaller product for the wrong audience, you'll not have an easier problem to solve. Then you'll have the wrong audience now to try to sell your main offering to. So there's something about like really understanding the audience well enough to do this 2-step approach. Because the new product also has to talk to the right people to make this work. So that's at least part of it, right? And then it's about like, how do you make something that's actually valuable enough in itself, this small thing? It's maybe not enough to just make a cool white paper or a cool ebook, right? It has to be really good. And then it has to attract people in the right way. So they actually like get closer to the end. They have to get, you might be making the funnel longer in number of steps, but you don't want to make it longer in total, right? You don't want to like not move them closer to buying your product in the end. They have to know a little bit more about you or be a little bit more qualified when they get through your middle product, basically. Right.
And do you have any tips on, like you said, understanding your audience up front before you build any of this?
I don't think I'm very good at that, actually. I've been reading a lot of books about positioning and all of these things. I think it's also like we have a product with a lot of audiences. Our audience is very broad. So for us, it was about picking a part of the audience that we thought we at least understood pretty well. And then starting with that, because even if you have many audiences, then you can just take one of them. Let's say you sell a product that's for like like Slack, for example. Like everybody can use Slack, right? Then take one role in a company and say, like, we're going to make something for these people because they're also going to buy our Slack tool later. And then you could build multiple of these middle products, right? You don't have to have one here. You can have one for different audiences, and then they all lead you down to the same end eventually.
Right.
So that's also a way to test. It's a way to test an audience as well. Instead of like testing it towards the long sales cycle main product, you can test if they even resonate to like the middle step. Are you even able to get them to, if you can't even get them to buy or take a free course, do you really think you can get them to like buy the big B2B product? Maybe not. Maybe you can. So I guess it's like it's always hard, right? But I think it's a way to validate things a little bit easier as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so I think we're wrapping up the interview. So it's time to shine a spotlight on you, David. Any projects you're working on, anything that you'd like people to know, and anywhere that you'd like people to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I guess like if people listen to this and think, I want to do something like that, and they think courses could be one of the ways they would do this, they should consider doing that on Eduflow, right? So we have a plan that's free where you can have up to 15 participants a month taking your courses. So if you don't know if this is going to work, and even after that, it's pretty cheap, right? So if you don't know if your strategy is going to work, but you want to test this courses product, then come to eduflow.com and build your course with us. And then I would love to help and talk to you, right? You can always reach out on email, david@eduflow.com, or like my social profiles. You can Google me and you'll find me, I'm sure.
All right. Well, thanks so much, David. It was very fascinating hearing this story, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Forward Launch Your SaaS. If you'd like summaries, show notes, transcripts, downloads, and other helpful links and resources to help you implement the tactics you've heard here, then you can 1, go to forwardlaunchyoursaas.com, and 2, subscribe to our email newsletter. Lastly, don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, colleagues, and neighbors, and head over to iTunes to leave us a rating and review. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.